Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Woods, for your presentation. And as I announced, the next speaker will be Mr. Alexander Novak, Minister of Energy of Russian Federation. Please take the floor.
Добрый день, уважаемые дамы и господа, уважаемый господин Йозеф Тот. Прошу взять микрофон. Я прежде всего хотел бы поблагодарить и поприветствовать всех участников Мирового нефтяного конгресса, поблагодарить организаторов, принимающую турецкую сторону за прекрасную организацию.
Arrangements and excellent organization of the event. I would also like to greet CEOs of companies attending the panel and listening to us in the room. We note with satisfaction our multilateral cooperation and development, which is, I'm confident, a guarantee and a safeguard of our good future. The topic of the session is shaping the future of energy. Energy is the backbone of the societal development. In the upcoming 20 years, global population will go up, the electrification of the developing and emerging countries will continue, global GDP will keep growing, that will have a positive impact on the well-being of our people. The advances in medicine and agriculture will help increase the lifespan. All that will require a better energy supply, that is to go up by at least 25% by 2040. And the probability is high that we will not see an overnight revolution, but if we close our eyes today and reopen them in 20 years' time, I'm confident that our sector will become very different from what we're used to now. We live at a very interesting time. On the one hand, we're seeing an unforeseen transparency of markets and companies and great access to information, technological breakthroughs that we've been witnessing. Clean energy technologies are the reality of today. On the other hand, we can see destructive trends that quite often are unilateral and artificial. These are barriers aimed at uncompetitive promotion of one's products. We can see that politically motivated restrictions are used more and more often with respect to free development infrastructure and financing, and all of us together are to make up our mind. What energy do we want in future? How can we guarantee the uninterrupted supply of the global economy? This is the question. During the Industry 4.0, the center of electricity, it's not so important what the primary source of energy is. More important is that it should be available on demand, it should have a competitive price, and it should have clear and regular set of consumer properties. Taking all that into account, I'd like to dwell on several important aspects that impact energy markets. First, the energy mix evolution. Second, technological progress. And third, the fledgling rules of trade, financing and technological exchanges on energy markets. With respect to global energy mix, this is one of the most relevant topics today. Like a month ago at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, it was very high on the agenda. Together with colleagues from major oil and gas companies, we discussed that topic, and the overall conclusion is that the global energy demand will go up, although the structure and geography will change. The growth rate will go probably down, and to a large extent, thanks to technological progress and advances in energy efficiency, we'll see a reshuffle of geographic market structure. Like OECD countries are expected to stagnate. At the same time, the growth will be more pronounced in APR, Middle East, Africa, with the rise in consumption by no less than 1.5 times. The overall share of fossils in the energy mix will go down, but not drastically, and the demand for hydrocarbons will increase by more than 20%. And the ongoing growth of GDP will be accustomed by the increase in the car fleet and electrification of the emerging countries. We will see greater use of products of petrol and gas chemistry in all the routines of ours. 9 out of 10 the items that are around us have been manufactured with the use of the oil and petrochemical products. I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that during a century the global economy created infrastructure to consume fossils, spending trillions of dollars, lots of man-hours, and to maintain that infrastructure we need tens of millions of people, and the development keeps going on. It's not only about cars and filling station and relevant services, but also machine engineering, marketing, services. Any overhaul and adaptation of infrastructure without which it will be impossible to change the energy mix will take at least 25 to 30 years. The artificial acceleration of the reduction of the carbon content may devalue all those investments and have an impact, a toll on the competitiveness of many of the emerging countries, because energy sources and infrastructure will become much more expensive, and the greatest rate of growth will fall on the renewables. The renewables and nuclear power share will go up to 23% from 15% by 2035, and in power generation their share will increase from 7 to 20%. And I believe that the growth in renewables is pushed ahead inter alia by the UN climate agenda that wants to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gas in order to slow down the climate change. And let me cite an example of the economically viable movement towards clean energy, like in the Russian Federation. Even today 85% of power is either low carbon or carbon free, is from either low carbon or carbon free sources. It's hydropower, nuclear power and renewables, accounting for around 37%, and the gas generation totals around 50% of all generation. The cleanness, reliability and availability of the energy will be safeguarded by the reasonable combination of different energies, that the process should be inclusive, non-discriminatory for those who are most vulnerable. Now let me move to a very important topic that will define the future of energy, which is the technological progress, and I believe that we need frank and open dialogue to understand what type and what amount of energy we're going to need. In the century of electricity, it's not about primary energies, but energy sources rather. The fourth industrial revolution on lifestyle impact, and it is great, it may surpass other revolutions with respect to our daily routines. Definitely we're interested on how it's going to impact energy markets. We wonder that. Let us single out several key things, and I'll dwell on them, on these pillars, like digital technologies, artificial intelligence and robotics, biotech, material studies, infrastructural and transport changes, and energy technologies. These are the pillars that I believe merit our attention and that they can impact the future look of energy. With respect to digital technology, it's so common knowledge that under Moore law, each 2 years we can see the doubling of the computing capability, the growth and availability of computers, and the fact that they're adapted to resolve the goals that we've been faced with, make the ITC one of the fastest growing sectors of the global economy. having the annual growth rate by around 10%, and it underlies breakthroughs in other sectors, and disruptive growth in other sectors is possible thanks to digitalization and computerization. Why is that important? The humankind, in the course of its history, amassed colossal experience and track record of interacting with each other and with nature, but never in the course of our history we had a chance to analyze this data array in detail, the array of sequences and repeated actions. This is what is called a big data analysis. This analysis will have a toll on all the spheres of life and all the professions, optimizing routes, procedures, job scopes, and that may lead to the exponential growth in the labor productivity. Machine learning definitely will help teach robots in the course of production. That's definitely a very succinct list of all things that are going on, but these are major trends. Big data in the energy sector may help bring the cost of energy down and remove the windfall profits, reach many manufacturers of windfall profits, and it may impact consumer behavior a lot. Definitely, we don't have the full understanding and idea about the effect of these technologies, but it's obvious that further growth in energy efficiency and the moderation of the energy demand growth rate is only a question of time. Biotech also is very important for us. On the face of it, the energy may have nothing to do with it, but that will be wrong. All the projections of consumption are based on the assumption that the population will grow and the well-being will improve. One of the main drivers of that trend is a rapid advancement of biotech, such energies as immune engineering, genome mapping, accurate genetical engineering will help extend the lifespan and its active phase also, together with the numbers of population that has a direct bearing on the energy consumption. Precise genetical engineering in plant cultivation will be conditioned by the need to feed the growing population of the earth, and agricultural productivity will grow unevenly in separate regions only. That will increase the demand for storage and transport. Both are quite energy intensive and will spur energy growth. New materials science may change transport flows, and we're seeing the advent of the 3D printing. All that will impact the power and fuel demand and will impact the global energy sector. Look, better access to infrastructure has to deal with LNG and pipeline gas and power, grid infrastructure. We can see the growth in the number of LNG consumers. Over the past 10 years, their number increased from 18 to 37 countries, and that value may further go up, not only thanks to the climate agenda of the end, but also with the help of the technology of the floating and regasification terminals that may be sent to any remote territories. We also have projects with integrated terminals of the kind that will re-gas, but also will use that gas for to make electricity and desalinate water, and definitely that will increase and enhance the energy access. Now, a few words on the technology breakthroughs in our sphere. We all speak about the shale revolution both in gas and oil sphere. The optimized production process, better technology, the horizontal drilling and better fracking allow us to drill deeper, faster, longer and better, and that process goes on. The big data, the machine learning in our sector, all these things may lead to even a greater optimization, reduction of costs and the downtime that will make oil even more affordable for consumers. Digitalization of the field will allow us to better simulate the formations and plan the way of the equipment, get rid of the excessive spare parts and warehouse inventories, and will be able to shift rigs better and faster. Today, some of the companies use smartphone applications to control drilling. In power sector, we can see the rapid advancement of technology. The grids are becoming smarter and smarter, and we've been seeing the smart grid technology introduced everywhere. The distributed generation share goes up, and new technologies of transfer of the power are required, like wireless power transfer and others. The growth is witnessed in renewables use, and the nuclear power technologies are enhanced, including the closed-loop nuclear fuel cycle. The elaboration of these technologies require a new level of cooperation between research teams, manufacturing sites, and public structures, and competitiveness may only be preserved if we join hands with the single-minded people. And the third very important aspect, impact in energy markets, is the free and unhindered development of trade, the transfer of capital, spillover of technologies, and joint R&D developments. To develop, we need the clear, transparent, and fair set of the rules of the game, and otherwise, politics may become a considerable obstacle to growth. We often face artificial restrictions imposed on infrastructural developments. Artificial preferences are given to some of the energy sources and some of the suppliers. 3 years ago, at the WPC in Moscow, we mentioned that the probability of such risky actions was high. In the European dimension especially, we can see the blatant sabotage of the economically appealing projects that are good for consumers, such as, for example, Nord Stream 2. We can see meddling with the commercial interests of the companies. We can see distortions in some of the energy policies of some countries that drop energy and clean energy sources, like nuclear power and gas, being guided by political reasons. And I believe that the extra-territorial restrictions that are all the rage of late don't add up to the stability of the market. They encompass trade investments, the technology deployment, and these are policies that are an extension of protectionism, running counter to the rules and norms of WTO and other international organizations. And we need interaction for the sake of all the nations in the world. Such myopic actions will breach and frustrate the mechanisms of industry's operation, erecting artificial barriers on our way to progress. I'm sure that only open, based on single norms and rules, trade ties and technology cooperation will help develop global economy and international cooperation. It's not accidental that the G20 summit the other day in Hamburg and dialogue formats of the UN and BRICS and other international groupings and multilateral organizations saw that all the leaders of the countries called for developing, not restricting cooperation. Russia today is one of the major energy powers, a guarantor of energy security, including for the global economy. We can see the colossal untapped potential for cooperation and investments, and we'll do our best to untap that potential with all the interested stakeholders and parties. Making headway means cooperating among market participants to develop joint projects, establishing joint mechanisms of monitoring and analysis, funding, and R&D. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I want once again to reiterate that we live in the course of the Industrial Revolution, where we've been adapting to the new technological realities, which is the reality of today. We need to find the point of equilibrium on our joint actions, on our capability to find promising ways of development, on the inclusion of all the global economy and their participation. Our well-being depends, and that common energy future of ours should be safer, cleaner, and more convenient. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister Novak.